I encountered evil without boundaries, the kind that lurked in the shadows of my every thought and stretched its claws into my soul. The dragons I once believed were mere stories, transformed into a reality before my very eyes, wreathed in smoke and scales. If I had known then what awaited me in the bowels of the earth, I might have turned back. But the hunger for gold was an insistent whisper, a haunting melody that put my every doubt to rest. And in the dimmest of moments, my sister lay gasping, her existence slipping through the fingers of life's cruel hourglass. I was desperate. With no other choices left, I found myself standing before the unforgiving mouth of the dragon's lair. The air was thick and suffocating. A rancid smell of decay hung like a funeral shroud. I stepped forward, the sound of rocks crunching underfoot echoing like a silent scream. The darkness swallowed me whole as I ventured deeper into the winding corridor's time. Seemed irrelevant, every second stretched and twisted in the oppressive gloom. As I hesitated, I could see the faint shimmer of gold all around me, tantalizingly close, yet impossibly far. It was suffocating, this place, this reality. Fear bubbled in my chest, but so did an insatiable determination. I couldn't fail. Failure wasn't an option. My sister's fate rested on my shoulders like a leaden cloak. Every step I took towards the treasure helped illuminate the path to salvation, though it felt like I was dismissing countless warnings from deep within. What if I lost myself to greed? What if I never returned? As I continued, the shadows began to dance, contorting into the shapes of monstrous nightmares. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine, vague memories tugging at my consciousness, warnings of dire consequences, the stories of heroes turned into legends only through their ultimate sacrifice. What if I am not the hero? What if I am the coward? My heart raced faster. It thudded against my ribcage like a wild drum. Suddenly, the sound of clattering scales echoed through the corridor, sending my heart plummeting into an abyss of panic. I froze. Time seemed to halt. Then, the beast emerged, its massive frame blocking the scant light from the entrance. It looked at me with eyes that burned like molten gold, but they carried a heavy weight of despair, something I never expected in the gaze of a dragon. There was a hungry emptiness there, something I recognized all too well. "Who dares enter my domain?" its voice rumbled, deep like thunder rolling through the hills. "I have come for the gold, the treasure of my ancestors," I shouted, though I quivered in disbelief at my own words. "What price are you willing to pay?" it challenged, its breath smelling of smoke and soot piercing my senses. My resolve wavered, but desperation surged within me. Could I dare choose? I would pay any price, and if I fail, then my sister shall pay with me, I replied, my voice shaking as I clung to the hope of a bargain. The dragon laughed an eerie, echoing sound that resonated in the dark like the tolling of a death knell. In that moment, clarity washed over me like a tidal wave. There was something more at stake than gold. It was sacrifice, blood, a dance with the devil that I could not ignore. As the dragon prepared to unleash its fiery wrath, I found the courage to step forward, armed with the most powerful weapon of all, my unwavering love for my sister. "Let us fight then. I will take my chances," I declared, feeling the heat rise in my chest, propelling me toward destiny. Our battle began as I charged the creature, knowing I had to channel my pain and confusion into something incredible. Each strike echoed through the cavern, causing rocks to tremble and inches of dust to cascade from above. I could feel the warmth of blood on my hands. The stench of fear was enticing, yet the thrill of survival electrified my senses. The world narrows down in such moments, the air thick with life, loss, and destiny all intertwined. In that dim light of the dragon's lair, nothing mattered but the choice I made, the courage I bled onto the ground below. The dragon retaliated, and I became a mere whisper in the vast dark. As I dodged its formidable claws, my heart fought against despair. Was I too late? I questioned silently, begging the universe for mercy. I stumbled backward, my resolve threatening to shatter against the weight of the world. But vengeance fueled me as I struck again, wild and desperate. My hand found a dagger, its blade glimmering ominously in the shadows. I thrust it into the dragon's chest with a ferocity I didn't know I possessed, watching as blood spewed forth in a crimson arc. It screeched a noise that seemed to reverberate through the very earth, shaking the cavern to its core. As the creature fell, defeated but not entirely vanquished, my gaze fell upon the scattered gold coins that filled the once guarded space. I knelt to scoop several into my hands, my fingers trembling from a mixture of fear and adrenaline. The weight of gold brought both relief and darkness. I had battled a dragon, but at what cost? With the shimmering coins in my pocket, I could have won the riches of 1,000 lands. Yet my heart felt heavier than the burden of their weight. I turned to exit, but found myself pausing at the threshold of my conquest. What if my sister's breath had stilled forever, while I became enthralled with fleeting glory? What if I had chosen greed over love? The realization bore down on me. Buried under layers of avarice was the knowledge that wealth cannot heal a broken heart. I emerged from the cave, into the bracing night air, the moonlight bathing my face as I rushed the way back. It was then the clarity struck anew me. Sister's fate would hang in the balance of not just what treasures I could conjure, but how they could mend the wounds of the soul. Racing to her side, gold illuminating the path behind me, I found her barely clinging to life breath, caught within the cobweb of despair and silence. Tears slid down my cheeks. Moments spent in the cave flashed before me in a tapestry of regret and responsibility. Sinking to my knees beside her, I pressed the golden coins into her feeble hand, praying the weight of hope might lift her spirit. "Wake up," I pleaded through raw emotion. "I fought a dragon for you." Hope hung heavy in the air, but as moments ticked by, despair clung to me as tightly as her frail fingers gripped the coins. I realized my treasure alone could not awaken her. Yet, in that moment of darkness, a flicker ignited between us, a whisper of life's resilience. I recalled her laughter, the joy that danced in our home like the sun filtering through the leaves. I held her close, willing my strength to breathe life back into her weary soul. "Come back to me," I begged the universe, desperation pouring out of me like rain, relentless and fervent. My love swept up the remnants of despair, casting away the shadows that threatened to engulf us both. In the tension, the flickering flame of life bore its light. My sister's eyes fluttered open, the warmth of recognition glowing within her once dull gaze. "What happened?" she breathed weakly. "You were lost, but I found a way back," murmured, choking back tears of gratitude. Embracing her fragile form, I realized that the battle with darkness didn't bind me to the depths of greed. Instead, it forged unbreakable bonds, tethering me to love and sacrifice. If this story resonated with you, if you felt the trembling heartbeat of both love and dread, take this moment with me. Subscribe to Medieval Stories for more tales like this, where courage and vulnerability dance in the shadows, and light always finds a way to shine through. As my sister's eyes met mine, I felt both relief and a tinge of fear. Was this real? Had I truly succeeded in bringing her back from the brink? Yet those thoughts slipped away as I remembered the lair I had fled and the bloodied treasure that still lay hidden beneath the earth. I had become part of that world, now entwined in tales of dragons and riches. Yet the most significant battle had been fought right here in this dimly lit chamber. With newfound determination crackling in my veins, I knew I had to do more than just take from the earth. Yes, I had claimed gold, but I also craved redemption. This realization began to morph into something I could hardly fathom before. It wasn't just the gold that held value. It was the moment of sacrifice, the willingness to thrust oneself into danger for the sake of another. My sister stirred lightly. "What happened?" she asked again, bewilderment clouding her thoughts. "There was a dragon," I whispered, recounting fragments of glory and horror in a patchwork tale that began to spin as my heart swelled with urgency. "I went into the cave to find treasure, to save you." The flicker of understanding began to shine in her eyes. "You fought? For me?" The pride in her voice felt like a warm cloak, wrapping around the coldness that had seeped into my bones. I nodded, admitting the mistake of my choices. I did things I never thought I was capable. Offices I've seen in nightmares came to life, I confessed, swallowing hard, conjuring memories of the barred jaws and fiery breath. "And what of the dragon?" she implored, sitting up straighter. It's gone," I replied, hesitating, burdened by the weight of truth. But it wasn't just a beast to be slain. It was a part of me, a darkness that needed to be conquered. Suddenly, a thought struck. I can't just keep the gold for myself. There must be a way to use it, a way to turn this triumph into something more, I said, rising to my feet, a ripple of purpose flowing through me. I remembered the stories of traders who benefited not just from riches, but from the goodwill they spread through villages. Their names were etched in history, not because of their treasures, but because of their compassion. I clenched my fists, the coins rattling in my pocket as I considered the implications of my next steps. The village struggled. We were drowning under the weight of this plague and sickness surrounding us. I turned toward her. What if we could help? With the gold I took, what if we could bring back hope? A smile creaked across my sister's face, weak but vibrant. "Hope is the greatest treasure," she murmured, and I knew in that instant that she had always been the stronger one of us both. The realization was simple but profound. The gold wrapped around my fingers felt heavier now, a token of perspective more than mere fortune. It symbolized what I had fought for, a currency more precious than coins. A chance at revival and at life. "Let's gather the people," I declared, and with every step I took, every breath I shared with the living world outside, a new vitality surged through me. The village needed healing. It needed light to pierce the shadows creeping in their hearts. As twilight fell upon the village, I gathered the townsfolk in the square, many still reeling from pain, hunger, and disease. I stood atop an old crate, my voice catching the wind, carrying my words, though many were far too weak to stand. "Friends, neighbors," I called, the urgency weaving into the air like a tapestry. "I have returned, I have fought, and I bring with me a wealth that is not mine alone. Excitement bloomed like tiny flowers amongst the crowd, confusion flickering before understanding washed over. With every ounce of courage, I spoke of the dragon, of battles fought in darkness, but most importantly, I shared my vision of what we could do together. I spoke of distributions, of sharing, of reviving the ailing and feeding the hungry. The crowd listened, rapt and eager. I saw weary eyes flash with the glimmers of hope, the quiet resolve reshaping lives. Together, we can defeat hunger. Together, we can fight illness. The voices that once whispered had grown into a chorus, rising in unity against the despair that had shackled them for far too long. As pledges were made and numbers discussed, the dusk turned to night. Yet, our resolve illuminated the square like never before. With renewed determination, the village rose from its own ashes, and I became not a mere figure of wealth, but a symbol of hope, interwoven with arms ready to rebuild a future. Days turned weeks, and with every sunrise the village flourished. We turned the golden coins into medicine and food, creating more than wealth. We nurtured life. The sick began to mend, children laughed, and community re-emerged from the brink, standing tall like warriors against fate. Yet, through it all, as joy spread like a wildfire, my heart carried a lingering weight, a reminder of the darkness I had faced. A part of me always belonged to that dragon's lair, forever chasing shadows in the flickering tales that haunt one's memory. Do you think we can ever truly escape our darkest memories? I asked my sister one night, gazing at the stars twinkling above like diamonds strewn carelessly across a velvet canvas. Her eyes sparkled with wisdom that filled the air. It soothed the remnants of my fear like a gentle tide. "We are shaped by our battles, dear brother," she replied, a soft smile plastered on her frail but determined face. "But like shadows, they hold no power unless we allow them to." With her heart lifted by hope and certainty, I understood I could choose to rise and share the stories of courage, of redemption, and of life thrumming violently against the tide of despair. To every soul that stood beside me, to every heart that had fought at my side, I pledged a promise. I told them that together we would share our tales, becoming a conduit for those drowning in darkness. For even the shadows of dragons could inspire light. As we formed a new legacy, bartering not in the weight of riches but in the flourishing spirit of community, I found joy in the simplest exchanges, a smile, a helping hand, and a warmth of spirit so much greater than mere gold could ever encapsulate. If this journey ignited something within you, a spark of courage or a flicker of hope, know the tales don't just shape our existence together. Let us weave the story of our lives into a tapestry of shared experiences. Would you join me in this venture? Subscribe to Medieval Stories, where legends and lives intertwine, because every heart has a story, and every story finds its way home. As the village thrived, the bond among its members strengthened, weaving a tapestry rich with resilience and compassion. We transformed not just with the bounty of gold, but through the lessons of togetherness that rose from the ashes of despair. Every day turned into a testament to what we could achieve when we rallied together, and I, once a mere man lost in the depths of darkness, became a beacon, a storyteller that inspired strength and solidarity. I took it upon myself to recount the tale of my encounter with the dragon at every thresher's gathering. The flames of the hearth would dance alongside my words, and the flickers of fear and hope would mingle in the air, igniting the imagination of young and old alike. Each time I spoke of that wretched creature, I felt both the thrill of that fateful day and the heavy weight that shadowed it lift just a little more from my heart. Once I stood at the precipice of death, I would begin. I faced a beast that spoke in riddles and flames and challenged everything I believed about courage. Yet it was love that saved me. Not just love for my sister, but love for my people. That same love breathed life into my tired bones and pushed me to fight against the very essence of fear. The villagers would listen, their faces drawn near, reflecting the flickering flames' glow and echoing my emotions. I would see the fire in their eyes reignite with every word, knowing these stories would forge a collective memory stronger than gold. I urged them to recognize the darkness they might battle, and to embrace the stories that intertwined intricately with their own. The children would lean in close, eyes wide with wonder, absorbing each twist and turn of my tale. Their laughter rang with the promise of a future unmarred by the shadows of the past. They found embodiment in my word shadows rising when the shadows threatened, reveling amid the brightness of promise and possibility. Fear is a beast just like the dragon, I would remind them. It seeks to consume us whole, to muffle our voices, and my silence speaks louder than any roar. But we shatter that silence with our stories. Our unity becomes our shield. As the seasons passed, my sister grew stronger, her laughter once again filling our home. She became a cornerstone of this revived village, nurturing the children and offering counsel to the weary. Together, we bore witness to the metamorphosis of despair into joy, and our bond deepened as we shared both laughter and dreams. But deep within my heart, I carried the knowledge that darkness never truly disappears. It lies in wait, shrouded in the mundane, lurking quietly behind the crevices of hope. Little did I know that the shadows of the past were preparing to rise once more. One fateful evening, as we sat around the communal fire, storytelling blossomed into a tradition among many, and our happy chatter filled the air like soft music. Suddenly, a shrill scream pierced through the night, slicing through the laughter like a knife. The sound echoed ominously, moving swiftly through the dark like a viper. The mood shifted instantly. Faces turned pale as dread settled in. "What was that?" they whispered, edging closer together, anticipating the return of old fears. My heart raced as I stood, instinctively scanning the horizon. Then, like a thunderous tide, chaos unfolded. A figure emerged from the darkness, a mysterious traveler, weary and disheveled. His presence brought an unmistakable air of urgency, a spark of uncertainty, and I felt the collective breath of the village hitch as he stumbled into the firelight. "There is something evil lurking in the woods," he rasped, his voice wrought with despair. "Creatures of the night have awakened, and they thirst for blood." Fear gripped the hearts of those listening, and murmurs of trepidation began to ripple through those gathered. Instinctively, I felt the echoes of my past battles rise within me. The dragon, the shadows of doubt now gathering once more. The woods are alive with whispers. Something darker than any beast I have ever encountered lies in wait. The traveler continued, and as he spoke, I recognized the fear mirrored in the eyes of my sister. "It hungers for power, and has set its sights on your village." I felt a pang of anxiety, but also a resilient flame roar to life deep within. "Gather the people," I commanded, signaling for unity as uncertainty threatened to tear the fabric of village life. Within moments, the flickering light of hope reflected in the eyes of my fellow villagers as we rallied. They looked to me for guidance, for strength, their makeshift hero, forged in the fires of sacrifice and purpose. Together, we will face whatever darkness comes our way, I assured them, taking a deep breath to steady my racing thoughts. We have fought against monsters before. We can do it again. We venture into the unknown, led by the bonds built on our stories. It is the courage we foster together that shall shield us, I continued, holding my sister's hand as reassurance swept through her. The murmurs grew quieter. Determination began to take shape, weaving through voices still tinged with fear. But we will only succeed if we stand united, I implored, knowing well the weight our unity could carry. We face this darkness not as individuals, but as a single entire collective force will illuminate the way ahead. If the shadows rise, so shall we. The air crackled with anticipation, and every heart echoed the truth of those words. Together, we formed a plan, drawing upon the stories we once shared, stories of bravery, resilience, and the power of love. As we prepared to meet the unknown, I felt the strength of our voices meld into a singular roar of promise, etched into the core of our being. And in that moment, I understood that the true treasures were not the coins buried within that dragon's lair, but every essence of trust, hope, and courage that bound us together. With hearts ablaze, we were ready to step into whatever darkness awaited. If this journey touches your spirit, join me as we forge our way through tales of resilience and hope. Subscribe to Medieval Stories, a place where every voice finds a home and every heart is invited to share its battle. Together, we create a legacy, a shared journey woven with tales that inspire. Let's face the shadows and embrace the light that binds us. In the hours that followed, we fortified our village, barricading the entrances to our homes and gathering weapons, tools of both defense and courage. The townsfolk joined together, an amalgamation of strength invigorated by the common desire to protect all we held dear. Fear had transformed into determination, and we were no longer simply a group of frightened individuals. We became a formidable collective, prepared to confront whatever malevolence lay within the shadows of the forest. As night descended, a heavy darkness blanketed the land, a shroud that swallowed all light and hope. The low growls coming from the woods grew louder. The malefic murmurs echoed as if taunting us, daring us to venture forth. The air felt thick with tension, every heartbeat rising with the approaching unknown. It was in those moments of quiet dread that I gathered the villagers once more, urging them to share their fears and hopes as dawn was looming on the horizon. We are the sum of our experiences, forged by our trials, I began, my voice reverberating with the conviction that had propelled me through past confrontations. I need each of you to share your strength, I called out, eyes scanning the crowd for a familiar face, each one representing our shared stories, our battles fought bravely in day and night. From the eldest to the youngest, we bring forth a collective memory that cannot be broken. Together, we will turn our fears into a shield. As reluctant hands were raised, we shared tales of courage from our history stories, from parents, grandparents, and their own ancestors. The tales flowed, recounting how we had once faced storms so fierce they seemed insurmountable, yet emerged on the other side scarred but alive. Every narrative began to weave a blanket of resilience that shielded us against anxiety, every shared moment resurrecting hope like embers, slowly rekindling a fire. The weight of our legacy pressed into our hearts. Together, we broke bread, and our collective strength stirred anew as we prepared for the impending battle. With the moon at its zenith, a foreboding silence blanketed the village. I stood at the forefront, heart racing with both fear and purpose. In that stillness, I felt the pulse of the earth beneath my feet. It seemed to resonate with our collective resolve. As dawn approached, we would be ready. Then, piercing the veil of silence came the first howler-chilling echo of wild beasts desperate for chaos. Heartbeats quickened as the woods erupted with a cacophony of growls and snarls reverberating through the air like thunder. "Stay together!" I yelled, urging everyone into a close-knit formation, hands grasping weapons and tools alike. "We will not falter!" Encouraged by each other, we gripped our tools, united in purpose. I felt my sister's steady presence close by, her determination echoing my own. In that moment, I knew we would face the darkness with ferocity, hearts ignited with a flame that could not be extinguished. As the first beasts emerged from the tree line, their grotesque forms half-shadowed by the moonlight, I caught a glimpse of their eyes-deep, hungry voids that sought nothing but devastation. My breath caught. These creatures were unlike any I had faced before. They moved as if influenced by darkness itself, a manifestation born from the very fears we sought to conquer. "Now!" I exclaimed, and we struck as one, the village erupting into action. Fury and chaos engulfed us. The creatures released guttural roars that echoed through the clearing, battling against our united forces. I swung my makeshift spear, piercing one beast through the chest as it lunged toward my sister. She was by my side, unyielding, the strength of our shared bond igniting the fire of survival within each of us. "Back to back," I called out, positioning ourselves together with the other villagers, forming a desperate circle. "We face this storm as one." Fists clenched around weapons, we became a whirlwind, countering the savage onslaught of nightmares with every strike and thrust. The air thickened with the smell of sweat, fear, and the desperate need for survival. The light from our torches flickered wildly, illuminating our resolve, reflecting the unity encased in our souls. We fought fiercely and without hesitation, turning fear into action, desperation into determination. One by one, we pushed back the tide of darkness. The land upon which we stood felt sacred. It was ours to defend, but the battle took its toll. For every gain, a line was crossed, a friend lost, a wound suffered. My heart ached for every fallen soul. The cries of the wounded reached into my depths, echoing relentlessly. Gradually, we began to gain the upper hand. Each echoing roar diminished as our cries of defiance rose higher. Our courage spread like wildfire, igniting the very air we breathed, transforming our fear into power. Then, as dawn broke on the horizon, painting the sky in glorious shades of gold and amber, the last of the creatures let out a mournful screech before falling silent. The forest stood still as an overwhelming calm washed over us. The tension that had fraught the night dissipated, replaced with an atmosphere rich in shared history and strength. Exhausted but filled with a sense of triumph, we surveyed the battleground, the remains of our foes littering the ground, a reminder of our struggle, a testament to our unity. My sister stood beside me, breathless yet radiant as the sun rose, illuminating our weary yet resolute faces. "We did it," she breathed, tears glistening in her eyes. A wave of emotion surged through me, a mix of loss, victory, and an overwhelming sense of pride. Together, I affirmed, my heart swelling in gratitude. As the sun's rays broke free, casting a golden hue across the village, I realized we had not just defended our home, we had emerged stronger, haunted not by shadows, but emboldened by something far greater each other. I knew our journey was only beginning. The shadows had retreated but were far from vanquished. However, through the trials, we had forged a community that could rise from the ashes with love, hope, and unity. If this story resonates with you, illuminating the strength found in vulnerability and courage, come join us in this journey. Subscribe to Medieval Stories, where the power of our tales lives on, igniting passion and uniting hearts. Together, we shall navigate through the shadows and bask in the glow of shared experiences.